So today we're looking at Lesson 8, Conversation 2. And so this is our, let's adjust height. This is our second personality. And what is our situation? Do you remember? Well, you're not feeling very well. Oh, and so you go see a doctor and say, hey, doc, what's wrong with me? Can you help me out? And you hold up or you give your medicine to your doctor and ask him what's going on. And the doctor says, oh, this looks like you're taking laxatives. Oh my gosh. Ugh. That's probably why your stomach is not feeling very good. So then last week we saw our positive personality where you're like, oh my gosh, thanks for telling me. And you listened to your doctor's advice. And your doctor told you lots of different things you could do. This time, you're feeling kind of negative and you don't want to listen to the doctor, right? You're saying, it's over. I'm out of here. I don't want to listen to you. You're a quack. A quack means a fake doctor. So you probably should be careful if you call a doctor a quack. And then what do? You go home and start playing with your phone, scrolling through Instagram, and you start looking up some strange ideas. You see some old wives' tales and some home remedies, and you get some ideas of, oh, I can fix myself. I can make myself feel better without a doctor. Is that a good idea? Maybe you could help yourself a little bit, but self-diagnosing can be a little bit dangerous, right? And also, maybe people on the internet will usually tell you things are worse than they really are. Maybe you're feeling a little bit sick. The internet says, you're gonna die. Oh my gosh. So it's better to talk to a doctor if you think there's a problem. So this time, we looked at a few different new ideas, right? We saw old wives' tales. What is an old wives' tale? Well, I pulled up a list of a few old wives' tales that maybe you haven't heard before. An old wives' tale is a story that maybe your grandma might tell you when you're a kid, and there's not really much science to it, but grandma heard this, I heard this, and I'm telling you, you little kids. So one of them is that if you wear glasses when you don't need them, it could hurt your eyes. That's an old wives' tale. Maybe there's some truth to it, but the story is put on glasses that are not for you, and oh, suddenly your eyes are ruined forever. Another one is that if you eat chocolate, maybe it will give you pimples. It's bad for your skin. Oh my gosh. Another one is if you crack your knuckles. When you get old, your hands and your knuckles will hurt. You'll get arthritis. Ooh, wow. Is there science to that? I don't think so. One scientist actually studied cracking his knuckles on one hand, but not the other one for years and years and years. And both hands were fine. So that one's just an old story. What's another one? Well, yeah, there's a big list of them you can find, and they're kind of funny, kind of interesting. And then we looked at some home remedies. And some home remedies are just totally not realistic at all. But then there's some that have a little bit of truth, like drinking orange juice is a common home remedy in America, and vitamin C will help you feel better. It stops the cold, right? The common cold. And then chicken soup doesn't have any magic powers, but there's a lot of good vitamins inside, and maybe it will help you be a little more healthy. So home remedies, some of them are crazy, but some of them have a little bit of truth to it. And so through our dialogue, we learned a few different things. And we're going to look at that with our homework today. So we have Lesson 8, Conversation 2, Part 2 is talking about reported speech. We've talked about that a little bit before. Here we have some more ways to share a story from someone else. I heard it and I'm telling you. And then in Part 3, we talked about more reported speech, other ways to report it. Part 2 was about hearing what rumors are going around. Part 3 is about reporting exactly what someone said and some of the tricky parts about that, right? And then part 4 was talking about that clauses. And a that clause can add more information to our sentence and make it more interesting and give more detail. So those are very useful. So let's get started with our first sentence. Have you ever traveled to France before? Have you ever been to Paris? Or have you watched that TV show, Emily in Paris? It's pretty good. So here, let's talk about Paris a little bit. 大家都说巴黎是浪漫之都. Ooh, sounds so nice. Is it so nice when I say Paris wrong in Chinese? Okay, in English, I would say this as, everyone says that Paris is the city of love. Ooh, wow. So everyone says that Paris is the city of love. This would be my first choice. The city of love is a name that people give to Paris. And because it's a special name for Paris, you can have a capital C, capital L. Okay? So it's like a title for Paris. So another way to translate this, keep it a little more simple and not use this fancy title. You could say, people say that Paris is a romantic city. And so that's totally fine too, but a little bit less fancy and colorful. Okay, so this one, people did really well. Most of you had one or the other answer. So everyone says that Paris is the city of love, or Paris is a romantic city. And there are slight changes between those, but pretty good for everyone. Now, we have the start. When you're telling what is a very common thing to hear, there are a few different ways to say that, right? And we learned that you could say everyone says or people say. So if you say people say that, blah, 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 that means it's pretty common. There are people out there that say this thing. There are many people. But if you say everyone says, that means that it's a very common idea. Most people think that one. Everyone says that Paris is the city of love. And that would mean most people. Or you're trying to say almost everyone, right? And then if you say people say that Paris is a romantic city, that could be you've heard it before, but maybe it's not as strong. You're not saying that almost everybody says this, okay? So both of these are okay, just depending on how strong you want to say it. Everyone says, or people say, okay? And of course, you instead of everyone says, you could say everybody says, and it's the same meaning. And yeah, the question from Bruce about city of romance. So city of romance would be okay too. But why did I choose city of love? Well, if you go on Google and search city of love, and you search city of romance, city of love is a much more common thing for people to call Paris. So most of the time, the title for Paris would be the city of love. Sometimes people call it the city of love and romance, but not very often city of romance. I mean, if you want to call it that, that's fine. But it's pretty common for people to say city of love, okay? And I use capital C, capital L, because it's a title for Paris. It's like a special name, okay? And so city of love is good. City of romance is good. And then keep it simple. You could say a romantic city, okay? So all of those would be okay. But if you say city of love, I would use capital letters because it's a special name, okay? Next up. 据报道说，巴黎是最受欢迎的蜜月旅行的地点之一. So, it's reported that Paris is one of the most popular honeymoon destinations. Okay? So, we're talking about that it's been in the news, right? It's in the news or in a magazine or on a website. It's reported that. Reported meaning that it was in a news report. It's reported that Paris is one of the most popular honeymoon destinations. So, it's reported that. I think everybody got that part. That was the key part, and no problem there. And Paris is one of the most blah, 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 blah. And whenever we're talking about groups of things or one of, we say something is one of the something. Okay? So Paris is one of the most popular honeymoon destinations. In Chinese, you have honeymoon travel spot, right? And if you want to translate it that way, that would be okay. You could say honeymoon travel spot, or honeymoon spot, or honeymoon place, or I also saw location for honeymoon travel or something like that. But the word destination is a place, and inside of the word, you know there's travel involved. So all of those things I just said, traveling spot, honeymoon, location, honeymoon spot, you can just use the word destination, and it tells me it's a place and you're traveling to that place, okay? So honeymoon destination is a very common phrase, okay? So one of the most popular honeymoon destinations. So you could say, oh, they're having a destination wedding. That means the wedding is somewhere you have to travel to. My brother had a destination wedding. We all went to Mexico, and it was amazing. So if anyone says, we're having a destination wedding, you might go, oh God, that's so expensive, but it will be worth it. You should try to make it happen, okay? So honeymoon destination, honeymoon traveling location, that would be okay, but just destination is good enough, okay? And then honeymoon should be one word. So honeymoon is together. And then you don't need a capital letter because there are many honeymoons like every year, okay? And one other thing to be careful about is that it's one of the most popular. I saw a few people just say the most popular. So if you say one of the most popular, it's not the most popular. It's maybe in the top 5. So one of the most popular, maybe it's number 2. Okay? So you have to figure out what exactly are you saying. Is it number 1? Then you can say the most popular. If it's 2 or 3 or 4, then you could say one of the most popular. Okay? So let's say if I mention the United States, the United States is one of the biggest countries in the world. Is it number 1? Well, no, but it's one of the biggest countries. It's in the top 5 or top 10, right? Depending on what you're talking about. So one of means it's close to the top. Okay? Next up, let's keep on moving. 据我所知，很多人在巴黎都有艳遇的经验. Okay, so as far as I know, a lot of people have had romantic encounters in Paris. So here we have the phrase, as far as I know. That means I think this is true, but there's a chance I'm wrong. So this is a really common, useful phrase where people will say this to say, I've heard this, but I'm not completely sure it's true. And so this is something you can say to be safe. I think this is true, but maybe I'm wrong. As far as I know, a lot of people have had romantic encounters in Paris. Ooh, sounds nice. So I think everybody got the as far as I know part. So this phrase, as far as I know, as far as I know, you need all 5 words. I had one student before who would often say, as I know. But as I know is not enough. You need all 5 words. As far as I know. Because the as far means I'm close to knowing, or I think I know this. If you just say as I know, it sounds like you know it for sure. So remember, you need all 5 words. As far as I know. Okay? As far as I know. As far as I know, a lot of people have had romantic encounters in Paris. So I said a lot of people, but you could also say many people, right? We've learned that before. A lot of is very common in spoken English. And then one big thing that I'm going to mention first is in Chinese, you say 经验, having experience, right? Having that experience. But in English, we do not need to say the word experience because you can use verbs to show that is what you're talking about, okay? A lot of people have had romantic encounters in Paris. So using the present perfect tense, have had, shows that it's a life experience. Do you remember that? We learned present perfect before. If it's like, oh, I have done this, or I have gone to that place. This is showing that it's a life experience. And so, because it's in the verb, a lot of people have had, blah, 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 blah. You don't need the word experience. So this is one of those cases where grammar in English is making your life actually easier because you can use less words to say the same thing. A lot of people think, what's the point of present perfect? It's so difficult, so annoying. But that's because you can tell what you're talking about just with the verb. A lot of people have had romantic encounters in Paris, and you know you're talking about experiences, okay? Oh, I have a question about as far as I know. Does it sound too formal if I say as far as I know in daily conversations? No, not at all. As far as I know is not a formal phrase. You can use that whenever you want. And so anytime you're talking about what you think is true, you can use as far as I know, blah, 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 right? And so even in casual situations, you can use as far as I know. So let's say Bob just started dating Jenny. And you say, as far as I know, Jenny is Bob's first girlfriend. So that's a very casual situation, right? So as far as I know, Jenny is Bob's first girlfriend. So I think this is true, but maybe you tell me, actually, Bob dated a girl in college for 2 weeks. It's like, oh, okay. So not really his first girlfriend. Okay? So you can use as far as I know in all kinds of situations. Good question. Okay. So as far as I know, a lot of people have had romantic encounters in Paris. Okay? Now, here we come to the word 艳遇. And this was pretty tricky because we don't really have this word exactly in English. And so we can use the word romantic encounter to get the same feeling. A romantic encounter, well, an encounter is a short meeting. Maybe you meet someone for a day or a week, a short time, you could call it an encounter. And if it's a romantic encounter, this is a kind of common phrase. And a romantic encounter means you have a special moment with a person, okay? So it's like maybe you meet someone on the bus and you have a romantic moment. You could call that a romantic encounter, okay? So this was kind of tricky because it's hard to translate from that to English, and there's no direct translation. So I would use romantic encounter because it covers a lot and it just sounds like a nice experience, or it could be, well, it could be more than that. But if you use other words, it kind of changes the meaning. So some of you use other phrases. I saw a phrase, special experience. in special experience, that's fine that you could use that phrase to mean like something interesting happened, but it doesn't include any romance. So special experience would mean like you have a fun, interesting time, but it doesn't tell that there's romance. And then I saw the phrase love affair. So love affair, yes, that could be a short romantic experience or a short romance. But a love affair, the word affair often suggests that it's not a good thing. Like in an affair is more like a 外遇 instead of a 艳遇. So well, that could be what you're talking about. If you've watched Emily in Paris, lots of people have affairs, meaning someone's married and they're dating someone else. Ugh, not great. So if you use the word affair, it could be what you mean, but a lot of people will think of the bad kind of affair. Like there's a marriage and one person is cheating. That's called a extramarital affair, whatever. We just call it an affair. So be careful about the word affair. It sounds like 外遇, and that's probably not what you're trying to say. Okay? One other thing was, I saw a few people say get hit on, or an experience of being hit on. So getting hit on, well, be careful, don't say getting hit. Getting hit means oof. But that just means someone punched you. Well, that might happen if you have a affair. Like, so if you say getting hit, it means boom. But getting hit on means someone is flirting with you. So if a boy is hitting on a girl, in Chinese, you'd call that 撩妹. So the boy hits on the girl. Or a girl could hit on a boy. Is there a Chinese phrase like 撩哥? I don't think so, but you know what I mean. A girl flirting with a boy would be hitting on the boy. So hitting on someone is a little bit different meaning, but that could be what you are trying to say. Okay? So romantic encounter can cover many different ideas. Okay? If you've seen the movie Before Sunrise, you could think of that as a romantic encounter. They meet on the train and walk around the city, fall in love, and then say goodbye. That's like a romantic encounter. Okay? Next up is 听说杰克森就是在巴黎认识他的太太. Ooh, wow, so romantic. So this one was pretty straightforward. I think most people got it pretty well. And the answer would be, I've heard that Jackson met his wife in Paris. I've heard that Jackson met his wife in Paris. Okay? Now, here's another pronunciation tip for you. The word met. The T here, if I say the word M-E-T by itself, it sounds like met. The T is a stop and you can't hear it. But in this sentence, if it's met his, the T sounds like a D. I've heard that Jackson met his wife in Paris. So it sounds like met his wife. It sounds like a D is there. Met his becomes met his. So Jackson met his wife in Paris. English is kind of weird like that, okay? So I've heard that, the D disappears in heard. I've heard that Jackson met his wife in Paris, okay? And this is in present perfect, so I have heard. But in spoken English, people might drop the v, the have, and just say, I heard that. I heard that Jackson met his wife in Paris. Both would be okay. Okay. I did see someone say Jackson is supposed to meet his wife in Paris. So if you say that Jackson is supposed to meet his wife in Paris, if you say is supposed to, you're actually talking about the future. what's going to happen. They're planning to meet in Paris. Maybe Jackson's flying there Monday, she's flying there Tuesday. But if you want to talk about the past and what you think happened or what you heard happened, you could use supposed to, but you need the past tense. Jackson is supposed to have met his wife in Paris. Okay, one other thing. I've heard that Jackson met his wife in Paris. Met is only one time. It happened in the past, so use past tense. I saw someone write Jackson had met his wife in Paris. If you use had met, that is past perfect. And past perfect means you're telling me one thing that happened, and then you're going to tell me something else that happened. So past perfect had met would mean it happened one time before something else. But you're just talking about the first time they met. Jackson met his wife in Paris. That's okay by itself. I also saw someone say, I've heard that it's Paris where Jackson met his wife. And that's okay, but it's a little, you're making it more complicated than it needs to be. Because usually what we do is we take the place and put it at the end of the sentence. So take Paris and put it at the end. Met his wife in Paris. So if there's an action, Jackson met his wife. If you want to tell me where, put the where at the end. Okay? So, okay. If you have any other questions, let me know. But let's keep on moving. Move forward to our more reported speech. Okay? And so this is reported speech we learned about a little bit before, and then we got into some more detail, some other ways to do it, and how to make quotations. So put things in quotes. Putting things in quotes. Remember, if there are quotes, that is exactly what the person said. So there are a couple of you need to be careful. If you have the quotation marks, that's exactly the words that came out of that person's mouth. Okay? So first up we have 汤马士问我有没有1000块. So this one, pretty straightforward. Thomas asked if I had $1,000. So Thomas asked if I had $1,000. Okay, so this happened before. It already happened, so we use past tense for asked. And we're talking about at that time, so had can also be in past tense. So Thomas asked if I had $1,000 because back then when the story happened, okay? So some of these can be tricky because they can ask you if you have something, but in this sentence, we're focused on that moment. At that moment, he was asking if you had $1,000. Hopefully you have $1,000 in your bank account, but he was talking about in your pocket at that time. So Thomas asked if I had $1,000. And be careful about how, I think everyone did a really good job of this one. The only trick was that had versus have. And then one other thing is the way you write $1,000. Excuse me. So if you say $1,000, you say $1,000. So there are two ways to write this. You could write 1,000 and then the word dollars. So 1000 dollars. Or you could write it the way I wrote it, $1,000. So if you see what I wrote, $1,000, we still read that as $1,000. It's kind of a weird, annoying thing, right? It looks like dollars 1,000, but we say $1,000. And there are a few of you that wrote the $1,000 and the word dollars. You don't need to do that. Choose one. You don't need both, okay? And then I also saw someone write NT $1,000. So you don't have to have the NT there, but you can if you want to make it clear that we're talking about Taiwan dollars. Because sometimes people will assume a dollar sign means US dollar. So that one seemed okay. Next up, 我想起来有人告诉我，他们是常常借钱不还。So this one, we're using our memory, right? I remembered someone told me that Thomas often doesn't pay people back. So that's the most natural way I would write it, or the most direct. I remembered someone told me that Thomas often doesn't pay people back. Okay? And then if you want it to be a little more closer to the Chinese and include the borrow part, you could say, Thomas often borrows money and doesn't pay people back. Okay? You can include the borrows money part, but in English you don't need to because pay people back already tells that they borrowed it. Because if you're paying someone back, that means you borrowed it. Okay? So I remembered someone told me that. Okay? So I remembered, and then what did you remember? I remembered that blah, 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 blah. But we can drop the word that. The word that can go away. So I remembered that someone told me that Thomas often doesn't pay people back. Whew. So the word that could be there, or you can take it away. Okay? And I use the word often, meaning it happens again and again. But you could use the word usually, and that's okay too. So Thomas usually doesn't pay people back. Okay? And I say often doesn't, so often plus a negative, or you could use the word rarely. Thomas rarely pays people back. So rarely meaning not often. Okay? So often, rarely means not often. Okay? And Thomas often borrows money and doesn't pay people back. Borrows would need an S because it's something that happens again and again. If it often happens, you're using present simple tense. He often borrows money. So if you use ed, don't do that. Because if it's often, it's happening again and again. If you use ed, borrowed, that means one time. Okay? So I use the phrase pay people back, meaning giving them back money. You could use the word repay, but in spoken English, repay is less common. We just say pay them back. Okay? So you pay people back, which is kind of a strange phrase, right? So a lot of you said pay back money, but you pay people back. So you return the money to them, which is kind of tricky. I also saw he rarely pays back borrowed money. That would be okay. So yeah, you could say that too. Okay? Next up, let's look at how to do a quotation with commas, quotation marks, and then the words inside. So it says, 我回答就算有也不会接你. Ooh, geez. So you're not pretending to be nice to Thomas. You're being pretty direct. And so I replied, even if I did, I wouldn't lend it to you. Now this is not reported speech. Reported speech is when you change the words around based on when it happened. This is a quote. A quote is different because it's exactly what the person said. So I replied, even if I did, I wouldn't lend it to you. So starting with I replied. Replied meaning you say something back to someone. Someone asks you, you reply. You could just use the word said, but replied means you're answering them. Okay? And then then we have a comma after replied, and then quotation marks around what you said. Even if I did. And so you could write it this way. Even if I did. Did is just a shortened form of even if I did have $1,000. He asks you, do you have $1,000? And you say, even if I did, blah, 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 blah. So you don't need to repeat the did have $1,000 because He knows what you're talking about. And now, you're not answering his question. You're not saying yes or no. Okay? So that's why I use even if I did. Because I'm not telling Thomas yes or no. He still doesn't know the answer. So some people said, even though I have money. So that means you're telling him, yes, you do have money. So that could be a way to say this, but it's changing the meaning a little bit. So you could say, even though I do, I don't want to lend it to you. That means, yes, I do have it, but I don't want to. But even if I did, you're not really telling him yes or no. Even if I did, I wouldn't lend it to you. So you're saying, maybe yes, maybe no, but doesn't matter. I wouldn't lend it to you. Now, why do we use wouldn't? Wouldn't means we're imagining a situation. So if you use the word won't, I won't lend you money. That means it's not going to happen. There's no plan. But we're imagining the situation. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Even if I did, maybe I have that money, I wouldn't lend it to you. So you're saying no in this imaginary situation. And then one important thing is the word lend. So a few of you use the word borrow. So lend and borrow, in Chinese, it's just one word. And that can be a little bit tricky, right? So how do you remember what is borrow, what is lend? 借钱 or 借钱. So which is lend, which is borrow? Geez Louise, that's so hard. Well, one way to think of it is borrow is take and lend is give. So if I want to borrow money, I want to take money. If I lend you money, I give you money. Okay? So borrow is take money, lend is give money. So that might be an easier way to remember instead of translating in your head. If you say, oh, borrow and lend are both 借, what do I do? Well, you're screwed. You're in big trouble. But if you remember, okay, borrow means take, lend is give. Okay, that makes it easier. I wouldn't lend it to you. I wouldn't give it to you. Okay? Hopefully that helps. Okay. Next up about Thomas. He's kind of a liar. It's the face of a liar. 汤马士谎称他被解雇 sorry 所以没有钱 oh he lied to me. So Thomas lied that he got fired, so he was broke. Okay, so you could also say Thomas lied that he got fired, so he had no money. Now this is not good. You shouldn't lie to people, right? So Thomas lied that he got fired. So Thomas lied that blah, 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 blah. And if it's a lie, we often put it in the past tense, right? So he got fired. So another way to say this, you could say he was fired. Thomas lied that he was fired. But with fired, we often use the verb get. To get fired, he got fired. Okay? Not a lot of big problems with this one. Thomas lied that he got fired. And then the second part, most people did so he had no money or so he has no money. Are these different? Do you need to do had or has? Well, you could do either one. It depends what you're talking about. If you say he lied that he got fired, so he had no money. If you say had no money past tense, you're talking about in that situation back then. If you say has, so he has no money, you're saying that it's still true. He still doesn't have any money. So both are okay in this sentence. The grammar is fine, but it changes the meaning or what you're focused on. Are you focused on that moment back then or in general? And both could be okay. So he had no money back then. He has no money still. Okay? And then I use the word broke instead. We didn't talk about this, but the word broke means you have no money. So instead of saying he has no money, just say he's broke. It sounds more natural, it's faster, and it means the same thing. Oh, I'm broke. I have no money. Okay? And then, let's see. I also saw someone flip it around, which is totally fine, but it doesn't exactly do what we were learning. I saw he has no money because he got fired. The grammar is totally fine, and it's a very good sentence. But, well, it's not using what we learned in this lesson. But that's okay, whatever. Okay? Do you. Now, next up. Oh, also, I noted before, if you have quotation marks, you have to be careful. That means it's exactly what they said. So I did see someone say, Thomas lied, quotation marks, he is laid off, so he doesn't have money. Now, if Thomas said that, and it's a quotation, or if it's a quote, that means Thomas said the word he. Thomas lied, he is laid off. That means that Thomas is talking about someone else. So remember that if you use quotation marks, those are the words that came out of his mouth. If we're talking about Thomas, what he really said with a quote would be, Thomas lied, I got laid off, so I don't have money. But then reported speech using the word that, Thomas lied that he got fired. So be careful using those quotes. The quotation marks means it's exactly the words that came out of his mouth. Okay. I won't say it another 100 times. Okay? Next. 他求我不要跟他爸妈说，不然他会被赶出家门. Oh, so dangerous. Poor Thomas. He begged me not to tell his parents. Otherwise, he'd get kicked out. Or otherwise, he'd get kicked out of his house. Okay? So he begged me not to tell his parents. Begged is like asked, but stronger. You could say he asked me, but begged me is stronger. He's like, please, please. Okay? He begged me not to tell his parents. So if we use begged me or asked me, if it's negative, we do not to verb. He begged me not to tell. Okay? Or he asked me not to tell. Okay? And then instead of bama in English, we would say parents. You could say mother and father, but together just say parents. And then otherwise, he'd get kicked out. He'd get is he would get. And this is would get. And why do we use would? Because we're imagining the situation. It hasn't happened yet. You haven't told his parents. So maybe it might. We're imagining it. So we use would. He would get kicked out, or he'd get kicked out. He'd get kicked out. So when people are speaking quickly, you might not really hear that D. Otherwise, he'd get kicked out. The D is very quiet, very subtle. He'd get kicked out. So listen for the he'd, okay? But you don't need to say he'd get. So don't duh, okay? Just a little bit of a D. And yeah, so you want would get instead of will get, because will means it's going to happen. Would, maybe, we're not sure. And then use kicked out. You can imagine the mom and dad kicking him out the door, using their foot to kick his butt. So usually for people, we say someone got kicked out. I saw someone use the word driven out. That's okay, but it sounds a little more, it's a little bit less common. Driven out sounds like a bigger thing. Maybe like, these people were driven out of the country. You might see that in a history book. It's like, oh no, these people got driven out of that country. Oh, that's so sad. So for one person, usually we just use the word kicked out. So kicked out of his house, kicked out of his parents' house. Okay? Oh, and then we use the word otherwise, which we've learned before. Like, if you do this, maybe this will happen, right? This is the consequence. So otherwise, he'd get kicked out. Ooh, poor guy. Next up is, where are we? We're at lesson 8, conversation 2, part 4. So here we're talking about phrases that start with the word that, okay? And so this is where this phrase that can act as an object, and sometimes it can act as a subject. But if we use it as a subject, we usually add the words the fact. So the fact that, blah, 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 blah. So that phrases are often used as objects. So I remember that, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that sounds familiar. What did I say before? Well, you can drop the word that, which we'll learn more about in the future, okay? But here, for now, let's just keep the word that because it makes it a little easier to read, make it a little clearer. So our first sentence is, 我很遗憾你没有得到那份工作. Oh, too bad. Your friend applied for a job, but it didn't happen. You could say, I'm really sorry that you didn't get that job. So I'm really sorry about something. About what? That you didn't get that job. This whole idea is why you're sorry. I'm really sorry that you didn't get that job. Oh, geez, that sounded like a Canadian sorry. Americans say sorry, Canadians say sorry. So I caught myself. I'm really sorry. And here we're learning to keep the word that. But when you're reading or listening to people, keep an eye out because you might have, I'm really sorry you didn't get that job. And that's totally fine. People will not say the word that just to save time. So I'm really sorry that you didn't get that job. You could also say, I'm really sorry you didn't get that job. Okay? Now, I don't think we had any big problems with this sentence. I said that job. You could also say the job. Depends what you're talking about. That job is specifically about that one, or the job, meaning the one we're talking about. They're both basically the same. Okay? That's the only thing. Next up, oh, actually, you could say I'm sorry or I'm really sorry. It depends how strong you want to make it. So next up is 很明显他们已有内定人选. So it's obvious that they had already decided who to hire. So it's obvious that. So it's obvious, meaning something is obvious, this situation. The word it doesn't really mean anything. So it's just a setup. We use the word it to start the sentence and say, like, this situation is obvious. It's obvious. So what's obvious? It's obvious that they had already decided who to hire. This just means that your friend applied for the job, they tried to get it, they didn't get it. And you think that company had already chosen someone before they interviewed people. And that's not very fair, but it happens sometimes. They just interview just to maybe follow the law. And so that can happen sometimes. Maybe at a company, there's someone there that is perfect for the job, but the law says they have to interview other people. That happens sometimes, okay? So it's obvious that, I think everyone got that part. They had already decided who to hire. I use they had already decided. So past perfect tense, had decided, meaning this happened before something else happened. They had already decided before you didn't get it, okay? So they decided who to hire. You could say this another way too. They had already chosen someone. I saw they've chosen someone. You should use they had chosen someone, past tense. That would be okay. they had the ideal candidate before the interview. That's okay, but it's a little bit complicated, so it sounds pretty formal. But you could say that they had the ideal candidate before the interview. A candidate means person you're choosing. They had already decided the right person. That would be better if you said decided the person right for the job. Okay? So pretty good sentences, just different ways to say similar things. Okay, let's keep on going. Our next sentence is 你听到消息时没有哭，真的很勇敢. Yeah, amazing. So this is one where we're starting with what's happening as the subject, or this idea of this fact is our subject. So I'd say, the fact that you didn't cry when you heard the news was really brave of you. So this whole big idea is the subject. So the fact that you didn't cry when you heard the news was really brave of you. Now that's kind of a complicated sentence, but people will say things like that. So using the fact that could be the start of the sentence. The fact that you didn't cry when you heard the news was really brave of you. Okay? You could also say something like, you were so brave when you didn't cry after hearing the news. So that's not using the same thing, but you could say, you were so brave when something happened. So I saw a few people say, you were so brave that blah, 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 blah. But if you start with you were so brave, you'd tell the time when they were brave, okay? You could also say, it was brave of you that you blah, 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 okay? So you could say, it was brave of you, whatever. And then, so I said the fact that you didn't cry when you heard the news was really brave of you. Now, we're using was in the past tense because it happened before. So I saw a few people say is brave of you, but it's not happening right now. So past tense is better. Was brave. Okay? You were so brave that you didn't cry. If you say you were so brave that blah, 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 that would mean being brave led to something happen later. So this is a little bit tricky because if you say you were so brave that blah, 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 being brave caused something to happen or caused something not to happen. While here, we're talking about this situation and I'm saying you were impressive. So something was brave of you. I'll have to write a note to put my ideas together of how this is different. So maybe I'll write this up and leave a post later about what the difference is. You were so brave that blah, blah, blah versus blah, 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 blah was brave of you. So the feeling's a little bit different. I'll have to put it in words first. So I'll have to think about that a little more. Okay? So next up is 我有信心你一定可以找到更好的工作. Okay? So this one is, I'm confident that you can definitely find a better job. So I'm confident that blah, 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 blah. I'm confident that you can definitely find a better job. Okay? So I am confident, describing me, and then what am I confident about? That you can find a job. Okay? You could also write this other ways. You could say, I believe that. I believe that you can find a job. Or I'm sure that. All three of these are great. All three of them are fine. And then the second part, I'm confident that you can definitely find a better job. Okay? So you can definitely find. So can meaning you have the ability. It's possible. I don't know for sure, but I know you can. So I saw a few people use you will. I'm confident that you will find a better job. And that's more confident than can find. So can find means you have the ability, it's possible. But if you say you will find a better job, that's okay too. It's even stronger, okay? And so I use the word definitely to make it even stronger. You can definitely find a better job. You could say you will find a job, or you'll definitely find a job. All of these are okay. I also saw, I'm confident that you must be able to find a better job. This one is actually a little bit less strong. You must be able to find a job. I mean, that sounds like you're surprised that you didn't get it. But if I'm trying to give you hope about the future, it's better to say you can find or you will find. Okay? But let's keep on going. So we're moving on to Lesson 8, Conversation 2, Part 5. So as I said at the start of the stream, this is talking about some ideas that people have about how to be healthy, but there's no science to it. And some of these are called old wives' tales, meaning like something your grandma heard from her grandma, who heard it from her grandma, and then they tell you. And maybe there's a little bit of truth, but maybe not. Like, oh, if I eat carrots, my skin will turn orange. Is that true? I don't know, but it's an old wives' tale. Or if you shave your beard, it will grow back even thicker. Oh, wow, okay. Or what else? Or maybe if you eat the crust of bread, like if you have a piece of toast, the outside is called the crust. An old wives' tale is if you eat the crust, you will grow hair on your chest and you'll be a manly man. Wow. Does that sound realistic? No, it's an old wives' tale. And then we looked at some home remedies. Home remedies are when people use things at home to try to be a doctor and help themselves. So drinking orange juice is a common cold remedy. I'll drink orange juice and I won't get sick. Or I'll eat chicken soup and I'll feel better. Or if my stomach hurts, you drink something called ginger ale. Ginger ale is a kind of soda. That kind of works, actually. So some home remedies might work a little bit, but then some of them are just crazy. So you have to be careful what you read on the internet, okay? And so our character looks at these home remedies on Instagram and starts thinking about crazy ideas, mixing things together. Ooh, got a taste of my own medicine. Ooh, okay. So in our homework, we have the first sentence, which is ，I 居上有人谣传喝真奶可以美白。Wow, really? I've heard this too. Ooh. So in English, I would say, rumor has it on Instagram that drinking bubble milk tea can whiten your skin. So we learned the phrase rumor has it. Rumor has it means there's a rumor out there and I'm telling you what the rumor says. Rumor has it, blah, 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 blah. And where did we hear that rumor? Well, it was on Instagram. So you can say rumor has it on Instagram. Okay? So you can connect where you heard it to the phrase. Rumor has it on Instagram that drinking bubble milk tea can whiten your skin. Okay. Here, we want to just use Instagram. Rumor has it on Instagram. I saw someone use the phrase Insta feed, but Insta feed means one person's Instagram. So maybe you could go to my Insta feed, but that's on Instagram. If you're talking about a rumor, there are many Insta feeds that are passing this idea around. So you can go to my Insta feed or go to Instagram, okay? So rumor has it on Instagram. And I also saw someone say, there's an Instagram rumor. It's better to say on Instagram. Because if you say Instagram rumor, it sounds like the rumor is about Instagram. Maybe you say like, oh, Instagram makes you crazy. That would be an Instagram rumor. But if it's about milk tea, it's a rumor on Instagram. Okay? So be careful about using words as adjectives. Okay? You could also say word on Instagram. We learned the phrase word on the street. Word on the street is blah, 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 blah. And that's used in day-to-day life about anything. Word on the street is this. But if we want to be specific about Instagram, you could say word on Instagram is that blah, 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 blah. Okay? And then the second part is that drinking bubble milk tea can whiten your skin. So bubble milk tea, you could say boba tea or pearl milk tea, whatever. We've talked about this before. Remember, it's bubble, B-U-B-B-L-E. I saw someone write bauble. Bauble is another word, but your spell check will not fix it because bauble means to do this, bauble. But we want bubble. Bubble is that little thing, okay? Bubble milk tea, not bauble milk tea. Okay? Now, word has it on Instagram. Word on Instagram is that bubble milk tea can whiten your skin. Now, can whiten your skin is our phrase here. And so, you could also say can be whitening, or, but we can use the word whiten as a verb. Can whiten your skin. Whitening is what happens, right? So lots of things people buy in Taiwan will say whitening cream or something like that. Now, one interesting thing to think about is that this is very common in Asia to have skin whitening, but this is actually kind of sensitive in the West. So skin whitening is common in Taiwan, in Korea, in Japan, in Asia, but in America, you probably don't want to use the phrase whiten your skin. It could be a little bit sensitive. So people might use the word lighten your skin, make it a little bit lighter, or brighten your skin. Brighten means like make your skin look really nice and beautiful. So lighten your skin or brighten your skin. Whiten your skin is correct, but in America, people might think you're not saying something nice because you're saying, hey, being dark is bad. Why do you want to be white? So maybe saying lighten or brighten your skin might be a little bit better. Or if you want to be careful about stuff like that. Okay? So just be careful think about culture when you're thinking about what you're saying too. So if you say, I want to be white, be careful about that. People in America will think it's a little bit strange. So you might want to say, oh, I wish my skin were lighter. That might be a little bit better. Okay? So, yeah, you have to think of culture too when you speak English. Okay? Oh, I also saw someone say makes skin fair. That would be okay. Fair and light are similar, so it makes your skin more fair or fairer. Okay? Okay. So use whiten as a verb. Whitening is what you do, so whitening doesn't really fit in this sentence. Okay, enough. Let's move on. 很显然有人故意散布这个消息. So, who is saying this? Is it someone who owns a bubble tea shop? So you could say, it's clear that someone is spreading this rumor on purpose. So it's clear that someone is spreading this rumor on purpose. So it's clear. Before we use the phrase, it's obvious. Clear and obvious are pretty similar. They both mean, or clear means it's easy to see. obvious means it's blah, super easy to see, okay? So it's clear that someone is spreading this rumor on purpose. So it's clear, and then what is clear? That blah, 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 blah. What is clear is the whole that phrase. It's clear that someone is spreading this rumor on purpose. So the verb here, I used is spreading. Why do we use is spreading? Well, because it's still happening. It's a rumor, so it's not one time and gone. It's going around and around and around. It continues to go from person to person. Someone is spreading it, telling this person, then telling that person, then telling that person. Continues on. So use the continuous tense. Someone is spreading this rumor on purpose. Now, why did I use the word rumor instead of news? A lot of you use the words spreading this news on purpose. Well, news has to be, well, news should be true. News should be true, right? And so if we're not sure it's true, it's hard to call it news. So it's better to call it rumor, okay? In Chinese, 消息 is kind of like information almost, but in English, when we say news, it should be true, what we know happened. If you're saying something that you've heard, you'd say rumor, okay? And then last part is on purpose. We put this at the end of the sentence. On purpose means someone is trying to do it. They want to spread this. And it's not an accident. It's not natural. Maybe someone's paying advertisements. It's on purpose. Someone is trying to do something. So I also saw someone use the word deliberately. Someone is deliberately spreading this rumor. Deliberately and on purpose have pretty much the same meaning, so that would work okay too. I did see someone use intended. Someone intended to spread this rumor. Intended means they wanted to, but they didn't. So that means something different. Intended in the past tense means they were thinking about it, but it didn't really happen. Okay? And then, last but not least, let's go to our final sentence, which is 大家都知道真奶热量很高. So back to what we said in our first set of sentences is we're talking about everybody knows. We're talking about everyone. And this is not just some people, it's everyone. So everybody knows that bubble milk tea is high in calories. Okay? Everybody knows. And so you're saying it might not be 100%, but it's close to. Most people know. So everybody knows that bubble milk tea is high in calories. I saw a few people say people know. People know that bubble milk tea is high in calories. That's okay. That would say that it's a common thing that people know. It's common knowledge. But if you say everyone knows, you're making it stronger, saying it's very common knowledge. Most people know that. Okay? And then everybody knows that bubble milk tea is high in calories. So if we're talking about this food or this drink has lots of calories, we usually use the phrase is high in calories. Now, this is not like we don't use this very often for other things. This like order of words, high in something, is not very common. But for calories, this is the standard, the usual way to say it. High in calories, okay? Something is high in calories or something is low in calories, okay? Or yeah, when we're talking about food, this is what we usually do. High in fat, high in calories, high in sugar, high in protein, or something like that. So high in and then part of the food. So yeah, remember that pattern for food. You could also keep it simple and say milk tea has lots of calories. That's totally fine too. But high in calories is what people will use for food. Okay? I also saw, yeah. And so if you had something close to that, I saw in high calories, just flip it around and say high in calories. And then I saw there's much calories. Remember, calories has an S, so you can't use much. You'd say there are many calories. So many because you can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 calories. Oof. So hopefully you don't get full sugar in your bubble milk tea. I don't think I've ever tried 全糖, the bubble milk tea. Full sugar sounds too scary. It's very high in calories, right? High in sugar, high in calories. You'll probably faint from all that sugar. Woo. So, in this lesson, we took a look at some old wives' tales and some home remedies. When you feel sick, what do? Do you go straight to the doctor? People in Taiwan do, but Americans do not. Going to the doctor's office can be very expensive. So if you're just a little bit sick, most people will stay home and just take care of themselves, figure it out. And so people will use home remedies. So I still do it. If I'm feeling a little bit sick, I drink orange juice because orange juice has lots of vitamin C. Vitamin C is actually pretty good to stop the common cold, make you feel a little bit better. And then if you get sick, chicken soup is another home remedy. And, well, it sounds kind of crazy, but chicken soup has lots of good stuff in it, lots of nutrients, and you're drinking hot soup. Water and nutrients are good for you, so it can make you feel a little bit better. But is it as good as medicine? I don't think so. So you can use home remedies to get a little bit better, but it's not going to save you from getting too sick. So let me know if you've heard of any other home remedies. There are some really weird, crazy ones out there. And then any other old wives' tales. Do you know any old wives' tales from Taiwan? I might know a couple, but some of them are, old wives' tales are like superstitions, but they're usually about health and food. So like, yeah, about health. One other one I didn't think of before is like, an old wives' tale is if you make a funny face, or don't make funny faces because maybe it will get stuck like that. So if little kids are going like, your grandma will say, don't do that or your face will get stuck that way. And so they're telling the kids, they'll go like this, I'm stuck, and stuck like that for the rest of their lives. Wow. Do you know any old wives' tales? I would love if you could share some with me. Maybe I'll post later with some other old wives' tales that I know from the West, from America, and when I was a kid, and then maybe you can share some of yours. Oh, point at the moon and your ears will be cut off. That could count as an old wives' tale, yeah, because that one's about your health and your safety and stuff. Yeah, so old wives' tales and superstitions are similar. So yeah, let's share some later, and that'll be fun. Okay, so let's wrap up here today. Go get some rest. Today is Thursday. You have one more day. So good luck on Friday, TGI Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Then you can relax on the weekend, or I hope so. So thank you for joining, everybody. I'll see you next week where we'll talk about our third personality. And our third personality is a little bit like, whatever, just tell me anything. You can tell me to do whatever, and I'll try it. And he tries some traditional Chinese medicine. So he gets into trying some like stuff that's common in Taiwan, but not really in the West. There are a couple Chinese medicine things that are in America that everybody in America knows. Acupuncture, people know, where you get pins in your body. And then massage is one, but there's a special massage called Tuina, which people in America won't know, but they'll know about strong massages. So some interesting stuff and hopefully some things you'll think are a little bit fun. And maybe you've tried these before. Have you ever tried cupping or acupuncture or tuina? And maybe you'll fix your yin and your yang. So I'll see you guys next time. If you're hanging around, you can send a message to Kyle Moai. And you can chat with me one-on-one. So please send me a message first. If you don't, I might try to find one of you and give you a call. Okay? So thank you everybody for joining. I'll see you next time. And have a good night. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.